Hi, this is Brett Harned. Welcome to PM Matters, a Team Gantt interview series that raises the voice of the community and explores what matters to us. Welcome to another episode of PM Matters. This is Brett Harned, and I'm here with Paul Boag today.
Hello.
Paul is a Hi, Paul.
Hi, sorry. So I immediately messed up your recording, haven't I?
Not a problem at all. So I'm just going to introduce you really quickly. Paul has become a friend over the past year, which has been great. He's a user experience consultant, speaker, mentor, and an author from Dorset, England. He helps organizations all over the world use the web, social media, and mobile to engage users. Paul is not a project manager, but somehow has become close to the digital PM community over the past year or so. So Paul, thanks so much for joining today. I really appreciate it.
I'm so grateful that you made it clear I was not a project manager, because I really couldn't project manage anything if my life depended on it.
So that kind of, I had a question about that, you know. Aside from the fact that a few of us kind of drug you into our events because we've followed you for some time and really admire some of the work that you've done in the digital community, what is it about project management or project managers that matters to you?
For me, they, I think, are what's the term from Star Wars? The last best hope. I think... I look at a lot of organisations, okay, and there are fundamental changes that these organisations need to make in culture, in approaches to digital. You know, most of the clients I work with don't really understand or get digital. And they need to fundamentally reshape the way they operate. And who's going to do that? You know, is it going to be the senior management team? Well, no, because they don't really understand or get digital. Is it going to be the marketing department? Well, they've got a good understanding of digital, but only from an external client perspective. They don't understand the full breadth of digital. Is it going to be designers or developers? Well, no, because they can't speak business speak. So who does that leave? Digital project managers. And so that's why I'm so interested in you as a community, is because I think in your hands lies the future of many organisations, which sounds very melodramatic, but I think, you know, I like to think it's true, and it makes you guys feel important. So that's the main thing.
Well, it sure does. I mean, there's a huge vote of confidence in someone like you saying that. And I know that I appreciate it, and I know a lot of other people do. You know, I think the role of project manager for some reason lacks a bit of credibility in some organizations. Yeah. And I'm wondering if you've seen that. Yeah,
I have seen it. And I think it's partly because nobody as a child goes, I want to grow up to be a project manager. It hasn't got that kind it hasn't got that kind of sex appeal to it, is it? You know, people do grow up and go, you know, I want to be a designer, or I want to code things, you know, because there's films, you get films made about people hacking and coding and stuff like that. You don't get films of people opening spreadsheets, do you? Really? Yeah. But So I think that kind of slightly undermines the profession, but that doesn't make it any less vital to business success. You know, the truth is, I think a lot of people think digital project management basically boils down to organisation. And, you know, most people think, oh, I can organise stuff. I, on the other hand, don't think I can organise anything, but most people think they're relatively organised. What they're missing is that digital project managers need this huge swathe, this very broad kind of understanding of lots and lots of different areas. And they have to be able to communicate, you know, with a designer one day, a developer the next, well, the same day, not multiple days. Yeah, content people, marketers, businessmen. They have to have this very broad understanding. And think, if all people see is, oh, they're the ones that organise stuff, then they're missing out on really the majority of what a digital project manager does.
Right. Completely agree. So what do you think can be done to kind of overcome that sort of point of view within organizations about the role?
I think, to be honest, I think you started to do some of it already. But by you, I mean you personally, actually. That you're building you've been instrumental in helping to build a bit of a community around digital project management. There were entire conferences, dedicated to designers and developers for years and years. Only now are we seeing conferences about digital project management, largely thanks to you and a few other key individuals. And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, a colleague of mine, a guy called Pete Boston, he came to one of your conferences, and that was the first digital project management conference he ever went to. And suddenly he became proud of his job. He became proud of what he did and what he contributed. And so it's almost like a self-esteem issue, really. Designers and developers are incredibly pretentious about what they do, and I can say that as someone that comes from a design background. And me, I've got the word consultant in my job title, so obviously I think I'm the center of the universe. But most project managers don't see themselves in that way. They see themselves as facilitators to what other people do, and that is so not true. You're actually, I think, business leaders. And I think it's about realizing that. And I think meetups and conferences and websites dedicated to digital project management, and people standing up and saying, I'm kind of proud of what I do, and it's complicated and it's difficult, and people need to take that seriously. I think that will turn things around. So I think you need to convince yourselves before you can convince the rest of the world.
I could not agree with you more. I think so much of it comes from your own personal sort of feeling about the role and how you conduct the work within the role and how you build relationships with people on your team. Yeah. And I think it is about facilitating and all of those sort of maybe boring aspects of the job, but it also can be incredibly exciting when you listen to it through sort of the lens that you've run it through.
And I think it's also, it depends on the words you use. Yeah, if you use the word facilitation, it sounds deadly dull. But actually what you're talking about is leadership. You're not talking about management, right? I've got a bit of a problem with the term project manager, right? Because a manager is essentially somebody that kind of sits on people and says, do this and do that, and you need to do it by this date, and that is dull. And also really not very necessary when you're dealing with professionals that really know their stuff. What you actually are leaders. You're facilitating the people that work with you. You're motivating them, enthusing them, directing them, encouraging them, and that's a cool and exciting job.
I agree. I also have seen a bit of a movement within the digital industry in sort of shifting the title a little bit. So I've seen more people being called producers. Yeah. I've seen the title project strategist thrown out there. It's something that I've toyed with for sure because it kind of widens the responsibility, or at least the perception of what your responsibility is. So I wouldn't be surprised if that shift continues and we see the role, at least in our industry, change. I think, that's the other thing that traditional project management is very much project management. And if you read some of the rule books or the guidebooks on how to do those things, they are very process-based and pretty stiff. Whereas in digital, we do a lot more than that. We're dealing with more fun projects. We're able to make a lot more mistakes and recover from them a lot easier than if you're managing a project that's on a construction site or something that's really huge. So I think that there's also a lot of ways that project managers can contribute because our industry is still fairly young.
Yeah.
Right? So it's exciting to see where it goes. I wanted to talk a little bit about your book, Digital Adaptation. Can you share a little bit about it and what it's about with our viewers and maybe kind of what's in it for PMs?
Sure. So the book really was born out of a frustration in me. So for years I ran a digital agency, and we were delivering great stuff to our clients. We were delivering great designs that were then integrated by internal teams, or we were doing the full stack and delivering that, and then they would run the websites. And without fail, although we were delivering great work, slowly everything we did kind of fell apart because there were just so many internal reasons within the organisations we were working with, why they weren't succeeding. They weren't mentally in a place to be able to deal with digital. They were very process driven, as you've already said. They were very stuck in almost industrial revolution thinking, of kind of mass media, mass market kind of ways of perceiving the world. And so Digital Adaptation is basically a book that talks about how businesses need to change, how they need to restructure their approach to digital and rethink the role of their organization in today's world. How do you better serve the connected consumer, these people that rely on digital to interact with your organization? So I talk a lot about that kind of stuff. And it is very much a book that is ideal for project managers. I would confess that when I wrote the book, I didn't have project managers in my head. I was thinking primarily of writing to senior executive teams in large organizations. But truth be told, as I've already said, I think project managers are the ones that really make stuff happen. And so a book like this would certainly kind of give you a strong business case about why you need to make changes within your organization and make a lot of suggestions about where to start in that process. So, I mean, if you're in an organization where you're a little bit frustrated that they're not really getting digital, that they're not moving fast enough to adapt to the changes that digital have brought, then I think Digital Adaptation would be an encouraging book for you. If nothing else, it'll show you that it's not just your company that has all these problems; everybody else does too.
It's so true. I think for me, it was like I said before, just kind of empowering to read a book like that and place myself in a situation, whether it be with clients of my own or, web design clients who are building new sites or apps, and helping to be the person to lead the change. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think placed in the right situation, a project manager can be the person to at least start a conversation about change and how exciting it can be and how it can be accomplished. So I definitely recommend the book to people all the time.
I like that. That's good. I'll send you your commission later.
So I have a question, as a designer, how can a project manager help you the most?
I mean, it's a long time since I considered myself a hands-on designer. I'm a designer Sure. in the broad sense of what a designer is, which is I solve problems. But a lot of the design I do now is almost at an organizational level rather than pushing pixels around. But That said, I actually think that in the right situation, there is almost a symbiotic relationship between a project manager and a creative, for want of a better word. I hate that word, but like myself, that I'm very good at broad brush thinking. I'm very good at quickly looking at a situation and hypothesizing a solution to it of how it may be solved and how we may may move things forward. Where I am very weak, and I think most creatives are filling in the details, are kind of providing the structure that makes that happen. And I think most project managers have that kind of analytical, detailed brains, right? So I remember very vividly, we went to a client meeting back in the day with the project manager I worked with at the time, and he invited me along to this client meeting. I hadn't really been massively involved in the project, and I sat down in the meeting, and they kind of laid out the problems they were facing, and I just completely derailed the project and took it off in a completely different direction because
I can never picture that.
I know. Because I felt that they were sending the project down a route that would ultimately fail, that would get bogged down and complicated. And I came out of the meeting and I turned to Charlie, who was the project manager, and said, "You must hate me for what I've just done to your project." And he turned to me and said, "Absolutely not. I can't think in that kind of way that you did there, but I relish now turning your vision into a reality." And for me, that is the perfect symbiotic relationship. That I can't make anything happen. I'm useless at making stuff happen, but I'm very good at picturing how it could be. And I think, when you've got a good project manager standing alongside you who you can take those visions and turn them into a reality, and to be honest, a lot of the time reshape those visions along the way to make them a bit more practical and achievable, then I think that's absolutely invaluable. So I actually think the two sit very nicely together.
Yeah, I agree. And good for Charlie for having that kind of can-do spirit. So many times I think project managers get that sort of negative perception because so many PMs would say, we can't do that, without really just kind of sitting back and letting things happen.
And there was certain...
I think Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, there were certainly things in my vision that Charlie then ripped out.
Sure.
And I, as a designer or creative or whatever you want to call me, have to be all right with that. You have to realize that how things look in my head is not always the reality of it. And I think the Steve Jobs of this world that kind of just bang away at things in the hope that everyone falls in with their vision of reality, I think there are very few people that can pull that off, and I certainly can. So it is about compromise on both sides, and it's about respecting the value of that project manager as much as your own role in it.
Yep, completely agree. So I think we're just at about time, which that went really quickly. But I'm wondering if you have any parting words of wisdom for our PM audience.
To be honest, I think I've already said it, which is, be proud of your job. That really is it for me. You do an incredible role that is massively under appreciated. I believe that in many digital teams, you are actually the linchpin. You are the people that make the reality of what is delivered happen. And you should get excited by that, and you should be enthusiastic about that, and you should blow raspberries at designers and developers that don't appreciate you. That's my advice. Blow raspberries.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support that you've given the community, that you've given me. Thanks for doing this interview. Everything is truly appreciated.
No problem. I love doing it.
Good. And I will see you in October at the Digital PM Summit, October 12th and 13th in Philadelphia.
I had to pretty much beg to let Brett bring me to that conference. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be brilliant.
It's going to be great. Thank you so much, Paul.
Cool.